is imaginary maps. Basically, it's all about alternate history. And, yeah. It's alternate history. Alternate history is is a subgenre of speculative history in which one or more historical events happen differently than they did in reality. So in other words, multiverse of madness. Now I find alternate history fun, so in this video I'm going to review 10 alternate history maps. Without further ado, let's begin. I'm sure we all remember the British Empire, which was once the largest empire in history. But have you guys ever heard of the French Empire? Well, I'm sure you have heard of the French Empire, but what if it was the largest empire in history, like the UK, except better? France was at one point a world superpower, but it fell off. And also, in the 7 Years' War, its empire was damaged. The final straw was in World War One. Actually, not World War One. I would say like between those areas. So, basically, what I can see first here is Canada. After the 7 Years' War, the idea of Canada was finalized, British. But in this universe, it's all French. 100% French. It seems they also got Alaska first. Then we also get to New Orleans, which was the base of the Mississippi-Missouri River. Holding this port city was basically gold. And when the French eventually gave this to the USA, they gave it to the USA. It also seems they conquered India easier now. And I don't think the USA would be able to do something about it because in this photo they're fractured. Of China. Except it's 2069. This is basically a world where World War III happened. Nothing new, folks. And the first thing I can see here is Big India, Big Mongolia, and also Japan, which holds Manchuria. And when we look back at history, that is actually quite an alarming thing to look at. So, yeah. Also, why is Ukraine in Manchuria? That makes no sense. It seems Mongolia got like most of the upper half of China, while India got the southern half in a Tibetan referendum. This kind of makes sense considering the Dalai Lama of Tibet is currently living in India. Then there's also East Turkestan and Tocharia. But then the rest is mainly occupation zones, which are basically colonies. Yeah, decolonization makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Next, we have this map of the FIFA World Cup. Everybody knows that the FIFA World Cup is currently going on. But, in this universe, it's kind of different, obviously. The first thing you notice is that, well, everything's carved. It seems the USA still exists, except now there's an independent California and Deseret in the background, along with a ton of other stuff. And how do I know this? Because the labels. Look at the other labels. Then there's also Arizona and Texas, although Arizona has much more land. Aslana has the flag of the three guarantees of Mexico. And then we have Fat Nicaragua. Mesoamerica. It seems that Colombia is called Bolivia, and this may seem weird, but if you watched my video about name changes, you'll find out that the reason they did this, was probably because instead of naming Bolivia after Simon Bolivar, they named Colombia after Simon Bolivar. So it would be Gran Bolivia, I guess. Next, we have another FIFA. I think I'm actually going to look in FIFA a lot more this year. Here is the USA, Canada, and Mexico hosting the World Cup like they are this year, except the change is something with the USA. Basically, this is a universe where the USA just comes out on the wrong side of the coin. After getting independence, they do not secure Vermont, and Vermont decides to simply remain independent. During the War of 1812, the UK is much more successful, and Tecumseh's Confederation, along with the UK, defeats the USA and takes northern Massachusetts, or what is today Maine, as a punishment. It seems that Tecumseh's Confederation eventually joined the UK because why not? Most other stuff went mediocre, except for Oregon country, where they made the border along the Columbia River and mountains, so that each country would be entitled to different, what would you call it? Just material. Like beaver hats if you're a Canadian. And then the USA also created an Indian country, a semi-autonomous nation. Then for the Mexican-American War, it just never happened. When Texas became independent, the USA never actually cared and just let it be independent. After all, in this universe, the USA wasn't really a symbol of greatness, so why start now? It seems Mexico was able to control its grand empire, although losing a tiny bit of the southern tip of Costa Rica. So, in a nutshell, this is basically a world where Mexico and Canada now control most of North America, with the USA just being a tiny buffer state to make sure nothing happens between them. One's lore isn't really in depth, but Motorways of Kiev. This is basically a universe where Ukraine gets a little more powerful, and when it leaves the Soviet Union, Russia can never really get the forces to conquer it. So the Russian annexation of Crimea, Donbass, and eventually the Russia-Ukrainian War never happens. So basically, Ukraine has all this power, and they use it to build a lot of stuff, like a metro station, and this is the metro station. Also in this universe, they convert from Cyrillic to Latin in 2010, which is why this is Ukrainian except in the Latin format. This next one shows if England disappeared. It's sad. In August 28, 2048, England disappeared mysteriously. Nobody even knows how. That's stupid. Basically, what happened? Oh my god, I can't even talk. So basically, when England disappeared, basically there was a lot of water under some beaches and more. that suddenly were let out. So as you can see, they flooded the area. They even got near France and flooded into the Netherlands. But this is where dikes are useful for once, and they actually saved the Netherlands. Also, the Welsh Republic, basically almost all of the land is uninhabitable. Scotland at least has some land, but most of it is chilly. Using this opportunity, with the most powerful part of the UK gone, Ireland started to invade Northern Ireland. Some submitted, while others put up a fight, and the war is still going on. And then for some reason, out of the blue, Brittany decides to try to secure independence for absolutely no reason. The Faroe Islands, nothing happens to them because why would they care? Most of the English Navy decides to go rogue and make their own sea empire, which is once again weird. And there's also a ton of other sea empires. The Isle of Man declares independence. Basically, all of the UK kind of declares independence. And then the islands declare independence. Everything's declaring independence. In Fallout, how those few people have like cassettes. This is basically a universe where some floods happen and turned California actually into an island. In 2576, that's actually very far in the future. Wow. Anyway. This is basically a world where somebody has like a video game cassette, and then it's like educational. It shows them all about the north, south, and west. Surprisingly, not the east, but maybe that's for the better, considering there's nothing there. So first, what I notice is the Californian Republic of America, which should get the two-head design like it does in Fallout. This is gold. You cannot tell me this is not gold. Anyway, then there's also a Mormon country. Then we also have a literal country called Deep State of National Parks. They made a country centered around national parks. And then there's also the Illuminati for some reason. Now, one thing I'm curious about is how this would shape the land. I mean, obviously, this creates a ton of coast as shown here, but wouldn't it offset some of the wildlife? And, you know what, maybe I'm talking too much, because this obviously happened a long time ago, and then this is like 250, oh my god, I'm not even gonna say that. Wait, why is Salt Lake big? For our next exhibit, we have the the Republic of China. This may seem just alternate history, but this is actually kind of mainly what Taiwan, basically their claims on land. They do claim that narrow part extending from Xinjiang. They obviously claim that they're the real China. They also claim what China also claims on Indian territory, and they also claim the northern tip of Myanmar, and Mongolia, and Tuva. However, I'm not really sure about Jiangxi and Beihai, Alright, Kuril Island seems too extreme, but other than that, that's kind of nice. But what's really cool is what we look at on the other sides. It seems Pakistan has gone into dream mode and demolished India. Then there is Korea reuniting because what are they gonna do? They're encircled by capitalists. Then the Ryukyu Islands become their own independent kingdom. And Myanmar is renamed Burma, so I guess that civil war actually ended, except I have no idea what the civil war is about. Also, are the Mongolians ever gonna sing it again? This new map just dropped. It's about Sardinia. But something's kind of off with this. I can't just put what could possibly be wrong with this map? Ah, I see. Sardinia made the sea yellow and red and white. That's not normal. This map is very inaccurate. For our next trick and final map, we have Japan, except it's a full republic instead of a constitutional monarchy where the emperor does nothing and we're back to the shogun times. The first thing we notice is that Hokkaido is either independent or joined a union called I can't pronounce that. I'm not gonna pronounce that. It says that Korea is independent and united under one thing, but it doesn't really specify which. I'm assuming it's the Republic, considering this is the Japanese Republic. They have the flag of the Japanese occupation zone, but for some reason they kept the government seal, which was used for the emperor, if I'm correct. So why would they use that for the Japanese Republic? Well, that's all. Yeah, that's the entire video. The entire video was just me blabbering about 10 maps that don't exist, and they never will. Trust me on that. Anyway, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.